be that Heartbreak Hotel.
What about Engineer Steve? Can we give it up for that guy right there? Come on, man. Best in the business, Engineer Steve. God, you make us look good, brother. Hoping also to make you look good, San Diego. If you're going through a little something, and perhaps that something involves significant others and it's not going too well, and maybe you got some kids, you got some assets, we got your back, gang. That's Nicole Boros. I'm flanked over by a industry leader sharing some secrets right now in Truth Radio. And this one is more of a tip and trick one kind of thing. So the thing we're trying to hack down is the idea of custody agreements.
Yes.
Right? These are things that you watch fail 80% of the time within the first 12 months of them being enacted. And the things that it typically fails on are things that are ridiculous. Like, you've been doing this long enough to where you can look upstream and say, if they only had done this, or this, they wouldn't have had to go through this whole thing again, had all that stress that created the meltdown in the first place. So we're calling this one the 5 reasons why your custody agreement will fail 80% of the time in the first 12 months and will cost you $2,000 possibly, potentially to fix in the meantime to redo. So what's number 1 on this list?
So the first tip is to stay away from specific calendar dates when you're scheduling visitation.
Okay.
So, for example, the most common is summer. We really want to stay away from the agreement specifically saying, father's visitation will start on June 1st.
Because it depends.
Right.
Right.
School dates change. Depends on the school they're at. If the parties move, they change schools.
So rather than using a specific date, how would you structure that then?
So typically I would say if father has visitation during the summer, father's visitation shall start 1 week after the last day of school.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what we do in real estate contracts too. The knuckleheads that put actual dates when they write offers, it takes 4 or 5 days to negotiate the contract.
Right.
Now they gave their client a 21-day escrow versus the 30 that they were hoping for. That makes sense to me. That's contract land right there. What's number 2?
Number 2 would be similar to that, would be define the holiday schedule. So oftentimes the holiday schedule trumps your regular schedule. So we'll put in, father has 4th of July, mother has New Year's, but you need to define when those hours start. So if you say mother has New Year's Eve and there's no times listed, that would technically mean mother's visitation ends at midnight. Who wants to be changing custody at midnight on New Year's Eve? That's clearly not the party's intention. So adding in those specific times, maybe it's New Year's overnight until the next day, that makes it clear so there's no issue.
You know what comes up for me when I hear you say that is the concept of I'm not going to use names, but there's online resources that do contract stuff for you.
Right.
It has to do with a word that kind of sounds like you're going somewhere fast.
Right.
Ding. All right. They work. They work in certain situations. Maybe when there's not a lot of moving parts. I kind of think of it like as the 1040 EZ of legal lawyer stuff, But this is a great example of where this can run amok, right? So if you don't have someone's experience to kind of guide you through and see, it's not just a drop-down box you're filling in like, okay, cool, you get New Year's, cool, I get 4th of July. Oh, what does exactly that mean, right? Does that mean I'm picking you up, Johnny, at 10 p.m. after the fireworks show?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and each family celebrates holidays differently. Some people, go to midnight mass on Christmas Eve. So you want to tailor your specific agreement to make sure that it encompasses those family traditions.
Yeah, well said. That's Nicole Boros, gang. That's borosfamilylaw.com, BOROS. 619-255-4013. Getting us all smart on stuff on the 5 reasons why custody agreements fail to make sure you get it right the first time. What about the kids?
Kids, when it comes to children, one size does not fit all with your agreement. So a common example that I see is we put provisions in for communication. So when the child's with one parent, there needs to be reasonable telephone contact with the other parent so they're updated on what's happening. Oftentimes, if there's a lot of conflict, we'll specify how long the phone call should be. Well, a 2-year-old should never be expected to talk to the other parent for 30 minutes. Anyone who has a 2-year-old knows.
That would be an entertaining conversation, even if it did happen.
Right. Anyone who has a 2-year-old knows they're not going to sit there for 30 minutes. So structure your agreement so that it works well with the child at their specific age.
Give me a little deeper example of how you might do that. So let's say the 2-year-old, the phone call would be ridiculous. So what would that look like better?
So we would structure it to basically include phases. So when the child is 2 years old, you specify, reasonable telephone contact dictated, by the child's interest. As they get older and we know that they can handle a longer phone call, we'll specify, when they're 10 years old, the child should have 30 minutes uninterrupted time to speak to the other parent. So we want to include phases so that the parties can use the agreement long term instead of constantly changing it every year.
So like if they're under 2, right? Would that mean that, because the phone would be kind of crazy, Mama, baba.
Right.
You're like, cool, only 29 and a half more minutes of this, which is not meaningful for the kid either, right? The kid will probably lose, the phone, give me YouTube, hang up and give me YouTube immediately anyway. So does that mean you go face to face?
We try to do FaceTime visitation so that the child can see the other parent, but that kind of also delves into another provision that is important to keep in mind when you're factoring in the child's age is the visitation schedule. So when a child is 10 or 13 years old, they can handle a week on, week off schedule. A 2-year-old would not be able to handle that schedule. We need to make sure they're having more consistent contact with the other parent. So we would usually practice more of a 2 days on, 2 days off. That way, if they don't talk to the other parent or FaceTime with them one day, we know that within 2 days, they're going to see the other parent. So it's all about structuring the agreement, making sure that it works for the child at their particular age and what their needs are.
I wonder, has there been any studies done about because, the technology kind of piece is a little bit new. It's newer, like Skype, FaceTime and stuff. Do kids does that even register with them? I'm sure they get to see mommy or daddy's face and that makes them feel good or whatever, and they recognizing that. But does that really constitute like a connection?
No, it definitely does not substitute an actual physical connection, seeing the child. But sometimes we have to include those provisions. Maybe the other parent lives out of state or the other parent is deployed. So it's important to keep those provisions in so that if that does happen, there's at least some protection for that party that's gone. But it definitely doesn't cover the important aspect of seeing the other parent on a regular basis.
I wouldn't think it would either. Speaking of kids, so what if the kid maybe starts getting a little bit older? Or they're like my kid where they're not even old, but they're acting like 10 years older than them, right? So what if they want to start kind of dictating how stuff goes? Is there a flexibility within the agreement where you can kind of account for that? Or is that not a good idea even in the first place? How would that work? The kids say.
Right. Oftentimes parents want to include that because they have so much guilt about ending the relationship with the other parent that they want the child to feel like they have some say in what's going on. But they're a child. They shouldn't be involved in this to begin with, and they shouldn't be the one making the decisions. So I see a lot of agreements that come to me. They'll say, visitation with father shall be as agreed upon by the child. The child just should not be put in that situation. And if you have a teenager, they don't want to spend time with the other parent. They want to spend time with their friends. So giving them that control and just involving them to begin with is not a good idea.
Yeah. There should be a clause in there about the date that's estimated where the kid will start hating both of them.
Right.
And then what to do about that. Is there any studies about what, and I'm sure the court would need to kind of follow these things, right? I'm sure they're moving targets sort of as we grow and we evolve and get access to more information and these things, get better, you would hope. About what's healthy for the kid, at a minimum basis, is the 1 week, 1 off thing the best way to structure it, where you're boom and you're boom, or does that have intended or unintended consequences for the kid's development or their ability to foster significant relationship? I'm getting on
yes.
Let's kind of hop down the rabbit hole a little bit on this. Is our weekends just enough to really have so if over a study of course of time, if they're with one parent for all 5 days and then only get the parent for a day and a half on the weekend, is that Does it hurt so walk me kind of through that side of it, that lens. Like, what's best?
Well, it really depends upon that particular family because you have to look at everyone's schedules. So week on, week off might not work if one parent works nights and then they sleep during the day.
That's true.
They are, of course, there with the other parent, but the other parent's sleeping. So we want to make sure that the visitation is given when each parent can have quality time with the child. You also want to look at the relationship between the parents. Are they able to work well with one another? If not, then we do want to decrease the back and forth visitation so that the parents don't have to see each other as often. We also look at how far apart each parent's homes are from the other and the child's school. If dad lives in Carlsbad and that's where the child goes to school and mom lives in Chula Vista, it doesn't make sense for mom to have overnights during the week.
Boom, 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 boom. Right.
So it's completely based upon the circumstances of each party, their family, and what is in that child's best interest, what's going on at that time.
In what I heard you answer, directly and indirectly, is quality time. Quality time is the issue, right? That's good. Anything else? I think that was 4 of them. Did I leave one on the table?
The last one is make sure to include notification provisions. So,
okay, what's that?
More specifically, there's a lot of different terms that are included in the agreement. You want to make sure that you have a provision that states when the other parent needs to notify you of those things. So, for example, each parent usually gets about 2 weeks each year for vacation. Well, you want to make sure that it's not the day before dad takes the kids for 2 weeks and goes to New York. There needs to be a provision that says if he's going to exercise vacation, he needs to give you notice at least 1 month in advance.
And because, things change.
Right.
Mom and dad are coming into town. Can I get the kids real quick?
Right.
That kind of thing. Spend time with their grandparents. But, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's fantastic. So what you told me before we went live is that you actually cooked up 5 more of these.
Yes.
Right? So really it's a list of 10, Truth Nation, lucky you. If the first 5 rang a bell and you want to know what the next 5 are, go over to Nicole's site. I'll drop that one more time. It's borosfamilylaw.com, BOROS, familylaw.com. And what, the contact us page?
Yes.
I would imagine. Just drop a little line there that says Truth Radio, and you'll send them what?
I'll send them a list of the 5 that I just spoke about and an additional 5. So you have 10 total tips to help you create your custody agreement so that you don't have to come back to me every year and pay me to revise it.
There you go, gang. That's why we got Nicole Boros in the house. And if you want to talk to her directly about this, or meaning this, what we're talking about, or anything else that might have to do with your family law needs, go ahead and give her a call at 619-255-4013. Or if you're willing to use an anonymous name, you can actually call in the studio live. And that number is 858-202-0034. Let's get Nicole on the hot seat. We'll get a call in live and drop her on the hot seat. I'm sure you'll appreciate that.